You're someone with a vision for your practice, for your side hustle, and for your personal journey. But when it comes to establishing your path on how to get to where you want to be with your practice, things get a little messy. You're also someone who'd prefer to go in person instead of to groups and listening to everyone else's story. To me, it sounds like you could benefit from one-on-one consulting with our experienced practice of the practice consultants. From $5.95 a month and up, you can work with a consultant that will give you more direction and practical tried and tested tips matched to you and your goals. For more information, visit practiceofthepractice.com/apply. Again, that's practiceofthepractice.com/apply. This is the Practice of the Practice podcast with Joe Sanok, session number 1236. I'm Joe Sanok, your host, and welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast, where we help you build a thriving private practice you absolutely love. And hundreds of people are in our membership communities, talking to experts and going through our e-courses and getting live help. We do 3 hours a week of live help with you every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday around 1 o'clock Eastern. Usually I say around because sometimes we shift it because of our consultant schedules, but almost every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we are doing live help, helping group practice bosses, people launching a group practice, people in sustainable solo practices. So if that sounds good to you, that you want to actually get some real help where you don't just get the information, but you get the implementation, head on over to practiceofthepractice.com/membership. We'd love to have you join our membership community to help you be able to just get to that next level. Today, I'm so excited because I feel like I try really hard at Instagram. But when I say I try really hard, as soon as those words come out of my mouth, I'm like, are you really trying? Are you really doing it? And I think even just looking at a reel that my partner Claire made recently, she was making fun of me in the reel. So it's a pretty easy reel for her to make because we were in Guadeloupe back in... was that March of 2025, early March. We were in Guadeloupe, the French-speaking island, climbing a volcano, and it was pouring rain, and we didn't have the right gear, so we went back into town and went to this Ace Hardware kind of place and got these ridiculous camouflage jackets. And then I also bought an umbrella because it was it was downpouring, and I thought these are those kind of raincoats that are gonna just stick to your body and not even stop the rain. So I had this ridiculous, fancy, almost British Paddington Bear umbrella on this hike up a volcano, and I just looked silly, and she made fun of me, and I just doubled down on it. And she made this great Instagram reel making fun of me with an umbrella, and people were fighting over whether I should have used an umbrella. And she had different music and different sounds and captions. And as I say at the beginning of this, that I work hard on Instagram, I think about that her reel compared to what I put into it. And I don't put in the time. So that's why I'm so excited today to have Kelly McKenna, because Kelly is not only an LCSW and MBA and is a licensed therapist and business coach for therapists, but she helps with Instagram. She built her private practice totally on Instagram at Sit with Kelly. Since then, she's worked with hundreds of therapists, helping them to find their voice on Instagram and grow thriving private practices at Business of Therapy. Kelly, welcome to the Practice the Practice podcast.
Thanks so much for having me on today, Joe.
Yeah. Well, let's just start with, how do most therapists do Instagram wrong?
So I think the first thing that I would say is that a lot of therapists are really afraid to show up on Instagram at all. And so I think a lot of therapists are sort of just missing that opportunity by not starting, period. And then I think the ones who do start tend to gravitate towards really sort of generic educational content that's not really niche down. It doesn't bring in their personality at all. It's something that, anyone could Google or write on ChatGPT. And I think when therapists can really figure out, how can I allow my future clients to see who I am? How can I show up in reels, kind of like what you're talking about with your wife here? I think that is where there's so much beauty and magic in Instagram, and it being a really, really, really powerful marketing tool for your private practice.
Yeah, I think that, in grad school, we're taught so much about self-disclosure. Don't self-disclose. Don't even post pictures of your kids. Don't be a real person online, and don't even respond to potential clients on social media. Mm-hmm. And so much of that is being taught by people that probably started their careers well before social media or the internet were even around. If professors were to update the way that they talk about self-disclosure, the way they talk about showing up online, the way they talk about transparency, and just all those things that often are fears, what do you think professors should be saying to folks when it comes to, being on social media, creating content on social media, and even messaging on social media to potential clients?
The way that I really look at it is this idea that like you shouldn't share anything on social media that you wouldn't feel comfortable sharing with a client in session. And that doesn't mean that, I would self-disclose as much in session as I do on social media, because when I show up in session, that's my client's time, right? They're paying for my time. They're paying to, talk about themselves, for me to give them insight and perspective there and tools. But sometimes as therapists, I think that we all bring a little bit of self-disclosure into the room. You might say, I have anxiety too, and that can be super normal, or that's something I see with a lot of my clients. Have you tried X, Y, and Z? Or maybe you're explaining, an example and you say, I was talking to my kid the other day and they were able to use this exercise. Like, it's super simple. You can do this too, right? And so I think that there's little pieces there that we can totally bring in that are not a big deal at all, that are not clinically inappropriate. And so that's kind of how I like to think of it. I share a lot on social media. I have 2 Instagram accounts, one for sort of like building my therapy practice and one for helping therapists with their marketing. But I never, ever, ever share personal stuff that I'm going through in the moment, right? You will never hear me talking about a fight I had with my partner or a panic attack I had that day, or, me having a bad body image day in that moment, because I don't want my clients to see that and to be worried about me. And so instead, I think also sharing from the place of a scar versus a wound, right? Where you're sharing things that used to happen, where you're sharing, vaguely, general things that you've struggled with versus being really specific in, I'm having a hard day today. Here's what that looks like. Does that make sense? Or?
Yeah, no, I really like that idea. It's almost like how, they recommend that if you're on vacation, you don't post in real time, like, hey, my house is open. Like,
Yeah.
You kind of wait till you get back, post the pictures then versus do it, live. And I think that idea, yeah, like if I followed my therapist and he's like, man, today's a low energy day and I'm just really struggling. I want to stay home in bed. And then it's like I have a session with him. I'd be like, what the hell, dude? Like, I don't want to come to sessions with you. So I think that makes a lot of sense. How do you find content? Because I think that a lot of people, when they're first getting started, they overthink it so much. I know for myself, I have a note in my phone where I have ideas and I think about stories, and I don't know if they're going to show up in a keynote or a podcast or social media. But I just kind of try to capture them there. Or if I have time, I'll just record it and then save it in a folder. Like, how do you do your content development?
Yep. So for me, I think that it comes easier than for a lot of people. I'm somebody who's naturally pretty good at marketing. I got my MBA. I studied this stuff. I'm really interested in it. And so, I can quickly kind of scroll my Reels tab and see something that applies to a totally different niche and figure out, okay, how can I apply this to my own business? How can I apply this to anxious millennial woman or therapists wanting to build their private practice, and sort of adapt the trend? I really pay attention a lot to what I hear my clients saying, whether that is therapy clients or coaching clients. As therapists, we are great, great, great listeners. And I think that marketing is really just reflective listening and sharing people's concerns back to them, but packaging it in a way that is trendy, that's fun, that's relatable, that's shareable, that's savable. And so for me, that kind of comes easily, but I know it doesn't for a lot of therapists. And so I created something called the Reels membership, where I actually send out 4 Reels ideas every week. And people can plug in. I give them like the trending sound, a fill in the blank prompt. I give them some different examples based off different niches. And I kind of take that legwork out for them. And then they can plug in those specific stories, as you were saying, Joe, or, specific concerns they heard from clients that week, and sort of package it into these prompts. So that way they don't need to think about, how do I do this in a way that is good marketing, right? Instead, they're just able to take their knowledge and kind of plug it in.
Yeah, I love that. I think that The thing that seems to be really working right now with consultants is to move from the information age into the implementation age. And what you're doing is exactly what we teach all the time, where, instead of just saying, here's how you make a good reel, you're making it so much easier for people to say, we have the trending audio for you. We have, the kind of plug and play, record these types of things with your own point of view. And then instead of them having to take, 10, 20 or an hour, to be able to do something, they can do it in a much quicker period of time.
Yep, totally. And, I actually started that Reels membership. So I have a course that works with therapists. And the first time I launched it, I was getting a lot of messages from people saying like, this sounds awesome. I really look up to you. You're doing great things on Instagram, but I'm just not creative. I can never come up with Reels ideas the way that you do. And that really, almost 3 years ago now, sparked the idea for the Reels membership. And I created it because it was something I heard from my audience that they were struggling with, they were wanting help in, they didn't feel confident in that. And so I think that implementation piece is really huge for people.
Now, how did you launch that? Like, was that something that people were just asking for and you listened, or was it something you had as an idea? Like, what did that launch look like?
Yeah, so originally I added it on as a bonus to my course. And I said for everybody who joined that launch, they were going to get 12 weeks of done for you Reels ideas delivered to them every Monday. And so I think I had maybe 20 or 25 people join my course that first go around. And so they got that included as a bonus. And then when there was like 1 week left, I got maybe 10 or 15 emails from people saying, hey, like, I know this bonus is going away. I really want this to continue. How can I do that? And so I just threw up a sales page and was like, you can check out and join here. And so I didn't have like a big launch strategy at the time. I launched it to, those existing members of my course, and then eventually shared it on social media as well. And it's been really cool to see how that membership's grown. We now have over 800 members, just from like me continuing to share on social media all organically.
That's awesome. Now, when you think about kind of next level things, I think there can be a tendency, when someone has gone from, say, just kind of doing consulting and then moving into more Instagram consulting and then Reels, to then expand. I don't want to say too wide. I mean, if your audience wants it, but then you can like get away from the thing kind of that you're known for. How do you think through the next offerings that you're gonna offer to people that are, say, in your Reels membership?
Yep. I'm somebody who's actually not a fan of doing a lot of different offers. So I've pretty much had the same 2 core offers for 3-ish years now. So I have one program called the Private Practice Academy Bundle that's really like a signature program that walks therapists through everything from starting their practice, starting their Instagram, filling their caseload, getting private pay clients. And there's, kind of like an add-on of a membership there for some coaching support. And so I have that as like my more higher ticket offer. And then the Reels membership, we get a lot of crossover between the 2 programs. And those are really the only 2 offers that I do. I do work with a handful of clients with like one-on-one coaching support at a high level who are sort of past the basics. They're scaling, earning well into the 6 figures and are launching other offers and kind of need more individualized support there. But for me, I think really not sort of chasing that shiny object, not realizing that not everything I do in my business that I do well, I need to teach other people how to do or monetize in another way. And so I think kind of staying focused in that has actually really allowed me to have a lot of success in my business financially, but also a lot of success in my business in terms of work-life balance. It's a lot easier to relaunch programs, to refine, to, add lessons and get people better results than to always be launching a new offer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I love that. So then are there things that like your Reels people, like what have they discovered is really working right now in Instagram? Because I know that people are listening saying, I definitely want to get some help. I want to know what to do here. Like, what are you seeing work?
Yeah, I think one is being able to post consistently, which I think the Reels membership is really helpful at because it just speeds up the process and makes it a lot easier to create content. right? So, a lot of therapists, they kind of have their foot half in and half out on Instagram. They feel like it's something they should do, but it's not something they're super excited about. Maybe they haven't gotten results yet. And so they're just posting, maybe once a week or every other week. And that's really not enough to get results. I think that it takes some time and practice to get good at Instagram, and it's, a new skill. And you need to really nurture your audience in the beginning as well. And so I think increasing frequency of posting can be super helpful. I definitely recommend posting at minimum, I would say 4 times a week. But if you can find the time to do daily, I think that that is super, super, super helpful. The other thing that I think is working really, really well is having a very, very, very clear niche and being very specific in your messaging, right? So I do not think that it's enough to say, I'm a therapist for women, or even I'm a therapist for anxiety. I think that we need to be a lot more specific with what that anxiety looks like, pieces of your personality that you bring into it, whether or not people have been in therapy before, what their experience with that was like. And by really being specific with your niche and giving really tangible examples in your content, I find that that tends to be super, super helpful for folks.
So awesome. I'm so excited to introduce you to the best website designers out there. We have a brand new partnership with Session Sites. It is where good therapy meets brilliant design, and they get your website switched over or built in less than 2 weeks. They fine-tune your messaging, use science-backed user experience methodology, and work exclusively with mental health professionals. In fact, new clients right now are going to get 3 free therapy marketing strategy calls with their creative director of Session Sites if you book today. You're not going to want to miss this. Head on over to sessionsites.com/Joe. Again, that's sessionsites.com/Joe. Get the website of your dreams today. Sessionsites.com/Joe. When you think about just other tools that really help folks, like it sounds like your Reels membership is awesome. What other tools or mindsets or ways of thinking about content can people think about when it comes to just having a good presence on Instagram?
Yeah. I think graphics are certainly like an underrated piece of Instagram. I think when therapists are first starting, they might lean a little more heavily on graphics because it can feel easier since you don't have to show your face. But once you get the hang of Reels, I almost see therapists flip-flop in the other direction and they don't want to do any graphics. But I do think that having that combination of both types of content is helpful because the graphics are sort of your chance to be more educational, more of an authority figure, really provide that value for your audience. Whereas Reels can be a little bit more lighthearted. They tend to be really validating for people, but they're not really positioning you as, the expert in something or somebody who, you may even come across as like an influencer instead of a therapist who they want to pay. And so using tools like Canva or Adobe Express to create graphics, at least once or twice a week, I think can be really helpful for both growing your following and actually converting that following into paying therapy clients.
Yeah. Now, tell me, what's the typical flow from Instagram until the intake? Like, what does that look like?
Yep. So I definitely recommend that therapists set up an intro call scheduler and have that on their website and on their link in bio for their Instagram page. So rather than, just having a contact page on your website, actually giving people the opportunity to self-schedule. So that way they can do so when, the iron's hot and they're feeling motivated to start therapy instead of having to do that back and forth, I think is super helpful. And so typically what I suggest therapists do is make sure that, in your name field and in your bio, it's really clear that you're a therapist, that you're accepting new clients, who you work with, and what states you're licensed in. I also suggest including that information in the caption of all of your Reels and posts, right? So it can be as simple as, is this something you want help with? I'm accepting new clients in Florida. Head to the link in my bio to schedule a free 15-minute intro call to get started, right? And you can just have that sort of almost like a disclaimer at the bottom of every single post. And then the third thing I suggest doing is sharing your intro call scheduler link and stories somewhere between like 2 and 4 times a week. And I think that this can be really helpful for the people who watch your stories are your most interested audience on Instagram. They are the people who engage with your content the most. They're the people who watch your content all the way through. They're the people who Instagram and its algorithm knows really, really like you. And so to be able to show those people and say, hey, I'm accepting new clients, click here to work with me, is really powerful in actually converting those followers. And you can do that in a variety of ways, right? One really common one I suggest therapists doing is sort of showing like their schedule for the day, and then they can put that link there. It sort of shows people, I'm a practicing therapist. I see clients in my private practice. Maybe you have a consult call that day. If you're doing like a little mini lesson in stories, talking about something your clients are struggling with and giving a tip, right? You can then share a story and say, this is something I work with my clients in therapy all the time. If you're looking for a new therapist, click here to schedule an intro call. I'm accepting new clients in whatever state. So I think there's a lot of different ways that you can do this, but actively sharing that link and telling people you're accepting new clients and how to work with you is a really, really important next step.
I love that. I'm just thinking I need to be putting my consulting link in my stories more often.
For sure.
Or other links, just to be like, yeah, like, why am I not doing that? Such simple advice. Sometimes it just takes someone kind of being outside of the room, looking through the window and saying, hey, this is what I see, to help you really kind of see it. What do you wish you would have done at the beginning of your Instagram journey that you didn't do?
I wish that I niched down a little bit more quickly. I definitely when I started my Instagram page, it was October 2020, and I went all in right away. I had made a promise to myself I would post every day for a year, and I did that. And after about 7 days of posting graphics, I did my first reel. Then I made a promise to myself I was going to show my face on Instagram every day for that year. So I was doing that either with a reel or a story of the day. But I was really good at showing up in the beginning and committed to practicing. But it took me a few months to really figure out what my niche was going to be. And so it took a few months for me to get my first client, for my followers to really grow, and for that to resonate. And I played with a few different niches in the beginning. My first niche was perfectionism, and that was not good for me. It really triggered my own perfectionism. I was reading 15 blog posts to say an Instagram graphic that was like, everything doesn't need to be perfect. You have permission to do things imperfectly. I was just so worried that I was going to get it wrong or something.
While you're trying to be perfect, about.
Yeah. It was not good. Then I kind of did some body image stuff for a bit. And then I sort of landed on high functioning anxiety. And that felt really nice and easy to me. It's something I can certainly relate to, but it's also something I've done a lot of personal work on. And so it didn't feel so heightened, but I had plenty of good examples I can pull from and inspiration that I could pull from content. And so that has felt really authentic to me. And it's been cool to see how that's really grown and shifted over time. But I think niching down was really when I saw things start to shift for my Instagram page.
Love that. What are you planning to do different in the next year of Instagram that maybe you didn't do last year?
That's a great question. So last year, I sort of experimented a bit with having people on my team do more of my content. And it's been really fun kind of taking that back a little bit. I've been creating content for 4 years now. So I have a lot of content that can be repurposed, sort of reused, repackaged. And that was nice in the beginning, especially, about a year and a half ago now, I launched the second Instagram page, Business of Therapy. And so when I was doing that, I was really having a hard time growing both Instagram accounts at the same time. And so my Sit with Kelly Instagram page kind of took a back seat. I had team just sort of repurposing content there. But now that both pages are stable and I have a lot more team support in other areas of my business, it's been really fun kind of getting back into the swing of things myself with content, bringing my own personality back into content, sharing more. And I've sort of taken this pressure off of I need to post every day or I need to post 5 times a week. And I've said I'd rather post 2 or 3 times a week and have it be really good, really fun content that I'm proud of, the kind of stuff that I want to like show my friends or show my husband because I think it's such a good reel instead of just posting to post. So that's something I'm really trying to focus on more this year. And it's been cool to see sort of like more brand deals coming in as a result. My engagement's already picking back up. And so it's been really fun.
I love that. Now, Kelly, the last question I always ask is, if every private practitioner in the world were listening right now, what would you want them to know?
I would want them to know that Instagram can be a really, really, really powerful marketing tool for you and your practice. I think that, especially if you're somebody who wants to go private pay, you need to give people a reason to view you as an expert, to view you as different than, the hundreds of other therapists on psychology today, and to be willing to go out of pocket to work with you. And I think that Instagram is such an amazing way to build a private pay practice in particular, because you're building a community, because you're giving people a prolonged period of time to be exposed to you and to get to know you, to like you, and to trust you, and to really want to invest more money outside of, their insurance benefits to be able to do therapy with you. And so I would really encourage therapists who have a dream of building a private pay practice to really consider showing up on Instagram, showing up as themselves, and putting in the work, because it can open up so many possibilities for you.
So awesome, Kelly. If people want to connect with you, if they want to join your Reels membership, where should we send them?
Yes. So I'm sure we can put the link in the show note, but for the Reels membership, the URL is businessofTherapy.com/Reels-membership. And I'm gifting 1 month free to the listeners of this podcast today. So you can use the coupon code PRACTICE and you'll get your first month free. After that, if you choose to continue, it's just $37 a month. So very affordable there. And I'm happy to take the Reels ideas and planning off of your plate. If you're not interested in joining, or if you just want to follow along, you can find me on Instagram at Business of Therapy, where I share almost daily marketing tips for therapists, and Sit with Kelly, where I share more of like my personal life, behind the scenes, anxiety type of content as well.
Oh, so awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Joe.
I think for me, one of the biggest things to think about is, no matter what kind of marketing you're doing, to start with, what do you enjoy? So many of my consulting clients or membership people are asking, well, should I be on Instagram? Should I be on TikTok? Should I be blogging? Should I be doing SEO more? Should I be? And there's all these shoulds. And to me, and different people may disagree, I want you to start with what you enjoy. Where do you enjoy showing up? What platforms do you enjoy? Maybe you enjoy writing a 3,000-word blog post that's super deep and dorky, and you dig into the research on things. Whatever you do is going to be something that you have to do more of. And so if you love social media, if you hate social media, if you love writing, if you hate writing, start with the things that you enjoy, and those things that you don't enjoy as much that you think are also necessary for your business, like maybe doing good quality reels, find ways to outsource that. Find ways to automate that outside of your own time. So that could be a membership community like what Kelly has. It could be having an assistant that's really good at social media. There could be all sorts of different ways that you still reach those goals if you want to work on them, and have it not be the thing you have to keep up with. See, oftentimes we talk about how you're an owner, you're an operator, and you're a clinician, and you get to decide how much of each of those you want to be. You may not want to be as much of the operator. You may love doing clinical supervision and just being an owner. Then we need to find people to fill in that operational side. Maybe you don't want to do as much clinical now. You want to do a little more operational. We need to then maybe bring in a clinical director or something like that. So find ways to automate the things that you don't absolutely love, because here we want you to have a thriving practice you absolutely love. And sometimes that's shedding some of the things that maybe you've done for too long, and in the future, it's time to just get rid of them in a different way, to have someone else do them, or maybe even just eliminate them from your practice and your marketing altogether. We could not do this show without our partners, and Session Sites is our newest partner. They help you optimize your website. They help make your website designed for engagement, and even better, your site's going to be live in 3 weeks. So whether you haven't touched it in years or you're starting from scratch, they have an awesome deal going on. Just head on over to sessionsites.com/Joe. Again, that's sessionsites.com/Joe. Joe to get that website that you absolutely deserve. Thank you so much for letting me into your ears and into your brain. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Special thanks to the band Silence is Sexy for that intro music, and this podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the producers, the publishers, or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.